Okay, so let's get started. I've put the steps up on the right hand side, so at the top there, so we can see where we are in this tutorial. Our first step is to create the repository in GitHub. So let's head over to GitHub. I'm just going to sign in. I've created a dummy account here that we can use. Let's go ahead and sign in. Completely empty account, so this will be the very first repository. Let's click on Create Repository over on the left there. Give the repository a name. Let's call this one Hello World. A description. This is a new repo. We're going to make it a public repository. Private is effectively, as it says, makes the repository completely private, and you can allocate read and write access to whoever you like. Public, everyone will have read access, so anyone on the internet can see that repository, but you can still choose who you want to allow to commit directly to that repo. We'll initialize it with a README, and that'll just drop an empty README into the repository, and we'll cover some of these other areas in a later video. The git.gitignore file and adding of a license, that's straightforward really. So you can just add any of these licenses in, and it will drop a file into the repo that describes the licensing information. So I mean, let's do this. Let's go for GNU General Public License, and let's create the repository. Okay, so as you can see there, you've got, at the moment, you've got two files. You've got the README, which has been created in Markdown language, and just lists the name of the repo and the description of the repo. And you've got the license file. So we can click on that license file and you'll see that that's been added to the repository for you. So you don't have to worry about going and find that text and adding a file. It's already there. So at this stage now, we've effectively got our repository in GitHub ready to go. So the next stage is, if you click on code, you are given a URL here, and you'll notice that this URL is an HTTPS address. You can use SSH to clone the repository if you want to use SSH credentials, if that's something you find easier, or it's something that's mandated within your organization. Then go ahead. You can set up the clone using this key combination below. But we're going to go for HTTPS. I'm just going to copy that URL into the clipboard. Okay, so that's it for GitHub. Let's take a look at the next step. So the next step will be to clone the repo. So let's mark this one as complete. We're now going to clone the repository. So I'm going to open up a PowerShell window here. You could effectively do this with any command line interface. You can use command prompt, you can use PowerShell. If you're in Linux, any shell will be fine. You can run these commands. You need to make sure you've got the Git tool available. So that's something that's downloadable. You can download that for Windows, for Linux, for Mac OS. You just download that Git tool, and then you'll have all the Git functionality available. So you can see here the tool is available. So what I'm going to do is, I've actually created a directory under root called learn git, and I'm going to run the git clone command here, and that's effectively going to pull in the repository from GitHub. So I've just right clicked and pasted the URL that we got from GitHub. Now, if I leave it just as it is there, that will effectively create a directory underneath learn git, and it will call the directory the same name as the repository. So in this case, it will be Hello World. You don't have to take the default. If you want to set a different folder name, different directory name, you can just type that in as a parameter here. So just type in your folder name, and it will create a folder for you as you've specified. But we'll leave it as a default. So I'm going to hit enter, and you can see there that's cloning into that Hello World directory. Okay, what I wanted to show you here is just I'm going to go into the I'm going to show you first of all the directory structure that's underneath here. So it's got a couple of files. You've got the license and readme.md, which I mentioned previously, but you've also got this .git hidden directory. So if I go into that hidden directory, this will actually show you what is being used internally. So this is where all the blobs are kept for Git, all the refs, all the logs, and various other bits and bobs that are all internal to Git. So I just want you to be aware that that's there, and typically when you see a .git directory, for example, if I show you this within File Explorer, you'll see that there's actually a .git folder that's hidden and it's inside. So that represents the fact that this is an initialized repository. There's always a good indication that you have a Git repository within that folder. So look out for this. That's the meaning of that hidden folder. Absolutely imperative to the normal operation of Git. So we've done the verification. Okay, so the next step now is to set the username and email address. So within Git, when you set up your repository, you're going to be committing changes to your commit history on a regular basis. And when you create a commit, and we'll look at the structure of a commit a bit later on, it will include some information about the person that's committed that change. One of those things will be the email, and another will be the username. So it's just important to make sure you've got that information there, and bear in mind that all of these data points, your username, your email address, when you commit to your data and then you push your data up to a repository that exists up in GitHub or any other repository hosting platform, that it will be visible. So you don't want to be using necessarily your personal email address, because that will be something which is potentially harvestable. So just be aware of that. So let's take a look at the username for example. So there are different scopes within Git. You can set this information on a per repository basis. If you want to set this just for this repository, then you can use the -- local. The other option is to set this globally, and that will set it for all repositories that exist on the device. And there is a third scope, which is system. And I must admit, I'd have to go and have a look and see what system is, but I tend to just use local for this. Or you can use global if all your repositories are going to be by your same account. But because I use multiple accounts, I'll set that. I'll set that on a per repository basis. So I'm going to set that up for Steve unique name, and I'm also going to do the same for the email address. So this is the syntax you'd use: git config -- local. So it's just for this particular repository, and then I'll set the email address. Okay, now you can go and have a look at that information by using the list command. So if you use git config -- and then you choose the scope, so in this case I'm going to choose local and list, and that'll actually show you what you've set for the username, which is here, and the email address, which is just down here. Okay, so that's setting the username and email. We're going to do the first commit, and we're going to verify. So let's take a look again what's in our directory. Well, we've got a license file, we've got a readme. I'm actually going to open up code now, because I want to use code to create a new file. So here's my directory. You can see same information as before, license and readme. I'm going to create a new file in here. I'm going to call this hello world.txt. I'm going to keep it really simple. Hello world. Okay, simple as that. I'm going to save that change. So that's now saved. Let's head back over to our PowerShell window. Now you might be wondering what this is here. So this is actually something called PoshGit, which is downloadable. And if I just have a look online, see if I can find the repo for this. PoshGit. Okay, so there we are. So PoshGit, a PowerShell module which provides Git PowerShell integration, and that provides that prompt for Git repositories. So you can follow this. You've got the information there. I actually believe this is probably something that you can download using PowerShell. Yep, so this is available in the PowerShell gallery. I've just found the GitHub page here, so GitHub. You can follow the URL at the top here. And it's available in the gallery. You just need to run these commands here to install the module effectively. And then you can run it. You can use Chocolatey if you want to, alternatively. So you've got a Choco install command there, which will install that on your machine. And what's quite nice about it is I can actually see if there are changes which need to be committed to GitHub. So in this case, there are. And I'm going to just verify that with the git status. And you can see that we have one file that currently is untrapped, so it isn't part of the Git repository, and it's not tracked by Git. So we're going to add that file in. Now, typically you can add a file just by specifying the file name, so git add hello world, or if you want to add all files that are either untrapped or that are trapped and have been modified or deleted, then you can just put a full stop, and that's going to add those files into the staging directory for Git. So as this is a practical tutorial, I'm not going to go into too much on the conceptual side, but this will add this to the staging area. And then I'm going to commit that. I'm going to provide a message, and I'm going to say my first commit and enter. Okay, now, so you can see now here where PushGit has told me that I've successfully committed that change, and I've actually got one change that can be pushed up to the remote tracking branch. And so let's just take a quick look and see where we are in terms of our set of tasks. So do first commit and verify. Okay, so we've done our commit. In terms of the verification, let's do another git status. And you can see there, so we're on the master branch, and this branch is ahead of origin master by one commit. So origin master, and we'll go into remotes and how to manage remotes in a further video, but origin effectively represents, in this case, the default remote tracking branch, which is what we've created as our repo. So during the cloning effort, when we did the clone of the repo, that automatically filled in the detail in terms of origin and the URL for that remote tracking branch. So we're all good. And if we take a look at git log here, we should see the one commit that's there. So there we are. And as I mentioned earlier on, you've got the author, which uses the username, and it uses the email address also. And then you've got the commit message, and you've got the SHA-1 value, which represents this new commit. So effectively called initial commit. Okay, so we're all good. So what I'm going to do now, so just bear in mind this initial commit actually came from GitHub, and that's why the author looks slightly different. So this initial commit here was from GitHub when we first set up the repository. And that's why you can see here that the origin master remote tracking branch indicator is suggesting that it's actually on this commit currently, and head, which represents where we are at the moment, is on the local master branch. And so by pushing, what we'll effectively do is we will effectively push this commit up to origin master, and you then should see this and this all aligned nicely together. So we're going to do a git push command. I'm going to need to log in here. And that's then pushing that commit up to origin. So now if I do a git log once more, you can see that head remains on the master, on the local branch of master, and origin master is now in unison, is synced with our local repository. And if I run a git status command, so master branch is up to date with origin master. So we're all good. So that is our push to GitHub. And just to complete this off, what I'm going to do is let's have a look over on GitHub, and we should see that file come down. So let's refresh this page. And as you can see there, hello world.txt, my first commit 35 minutes ago. And let's just select that file. And you get some interesting information here. Is you get the latest commit, and it gives you the SHA-1 value and tells you how long ago that occurred. So if we take that SHA-1, it gives you the first 7 there, so the first 7 characters of the SHA-1 value. And you can actually refer back, and that will match exactly the first few characters of the SHA-1 that's listed here. Let's just give you that so you can see both of those side by side. So you've got 91431C, 91431CB. Okay, so that concludes the tutorial. Thank you very much for listening.